Hello, and welcome back to the Triangle Business Podcast. I'm one of your co-stars, Joey Natale, followed by
I'm Scott Moore, and today
Hi
we have
guys.
a guest.
Today we have a guest, George Alwon, if I said that correctly.
You did, you
Beautiful.
did.
George is our guest today, and we're delighted to have you. I'd like to read off your bio first
Thank
before
you.
we jump into anything specific. George Alwon is the president of Raleigh Consulting Group, a leadership consulting, coaching, and facilitation firm serving clients through the United States and internationally for more than 45 years. He has worked with executives, board of directors, government agencies, nonprofits, and private sector organizations to strengthen leadership, improve team effectiveness, and navigate organizational change. His work focuses on helping people and organizations bring out their best while addressing the human side of business. Welcome, George. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here with you guys.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I can kick off a question here, but I'll ask this to kick it off, unless you want to start anything, Scott, that comes to mind based on the bio.
I mean, I'm always curious as to for people in the kind of business you're in, George, which is pretty similar to some of the stuff that Joey and I do. What was the moment that got you started down this path?
Oh, when I was broke. Uh,
Right on.
Yeah.
okay.
That's a good
Yeah.
Well,
motivator.
the moment actually started when I came to North Carolina from New York and realized that I was 30 or so and had no retirement. And I was in the social service world, helping people,
Mhm.
doing good for others. Social justice was always important to me back then, still is. But I realized all of this stuff I'm doing for folks, and I ain't got nothing. I need to
Yeah.
figure out a way to parlay what I was doing. And so I went to social work school to get a degree. And one of the key things that came out of that is the mission, which is self-actualization of human beings, of people. And I realized I could do that with poor people, middle class people, business owners, rich people, and I can make more money doing it that way and contribute still differently for social justice causes. This is about 1978, 79 when this came to pass. And then I created leadership consultants with a friend of mine, Cheryl Needell. I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. But we created it and we said, all right, let's go for this
Yeah.
and sell some programs and see what we can do.
Cool.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Here's a question to also kick things off. Here's a fun one. George, after over 45 years of helping leaders and organizations, what do you understand about leadership today that you wish you had understood when you first started?
Well, one is that people don't always change easily.
Mhm.
I thought in the beginning, oh, sure, everybody can change. I'll just have to show them and help them and guide them, coach them. They'll change. They'll be better. No, I've learned that leaders don't change like all of us. We will if we're really motivated, if there's pain or goal that we need to achieve, we may adopt and work at it. And
Mhm.
so one of the things I learned about leaders today, there's groups of them that I don't know how much I would like working with them. Maybe
Mhm.
they go around forever. They're really me focused and only me focused, and people are assets. I don't like working with those folks.
Mhm.
I don't, frankly. And I prefer people who, leaders who believe that the organization can grow and evolve, just bloom if they treat their people properly. So it's a values question to me.
I
Beautiful.
love that you said that, George, because I, when I talk to people about what I do, it's only always about meeting them where they are, who they are, working with how they already are. I tell them if I got to change you, I'm gonna have to charge you a ton more money, um, because that's way harder. I always am of the opinion that most of the time we're gonna continue pretty much on the path that we're on.
Yeah.
And like there's ways, sometimes, we level up but we usually level up in the direction that we're kind of already pointed. So,
Amen. I agree with
yeah,
that.
yeah, but I love that you said that because, yeah, I think we can labor under the illusion
Hmm.
that we're in the business of changing people.
Hmm.
Um, but hey, I'm always like, look, if you want to change, go for it, and I will be happy to adapt to who you become.
Right.
As long as you're not a dick, as long as you
Yeah.
don't evolve into an asshole. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So I too have learned to accept where people are and maybe do some tweaking. In business, we've always talked about managing change, and that's such a farce. You really can't manage change. You can help people do things and figure out ways to make change more effective.
Mm.
But it's like managing time. It's just not there.
Mm.
Yeah.
What's that? Another question for you. You
Go ahead.
believe many business problems are actually people problems. Can you give us an example of a company trying to fix the wrong problem?
Ah, well, I agree with the premise that a lot of the problems are people problems, although some could be technology. I think repeat the question again so I can get it.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. You believe many business problems are actually more people problems. Of course, not always.
Sure, sure.
But can you give an example of a company trying to fix the wrong problem?
Right. I see a lot of people, especially the smaller businesses where they're in the maybe 20, 15, 20 year stage and they have loyal employees with them and they want to grow and they want to grow with the people that were there. And frankly, the people who are there are maybe willing, but not able. And that's
Mhm.
a very difficult thing for business owners to to deal with because they know the families, they know these people inside and out, and they were good and they served and they helped them get where they are to the 20, 30, $50 million mark. But to go to the next step, you can't. You can't. You really need people who have been there, done that, and you need to redeploy those folks. But the mistake they make, and I love the mistake because it comes from the heart, and they have to really do something against the heart, which is uh, help. They come to us and ask us to help with them make those changes. They don't want to let go of their people, and eventually they do. But they want us to help fix this problem. And in many cases, it's sad, and I've seen this over and over in a small business sense. I don't know, Scott, have you seen that too?
yeah, I mean, I think usually I'm working with businesses that are a little smaller, so we're at the dozen people, maybe up to 20 mark. And but I do encourage my clients, like, don't get too calcified with this, set
Right.
of people, right? Like, always be helping them, like, evolve in the next stages of what they're doing, because, like, how you've operated up to this point is great. It's not going to get you to the next threshold.
Yes.
But talent and people who are familiar with the inside of a business is so precious. um I'm almost always like, who else can we bring in that fits the culture and adds new capabilities that we don't have, while continuing to utilize the folks we do have as best we can. um
Exactly. I think that that's good for this I mean for any business to match the talent of the culture and then bring new talent in. And I'm going to expand on that word talent. Uh, when a company wants to really grow to that next level and you come to the recognition that the folks I have aren't there. I've seen that when they come to the awareness that we need to bring someone else in, and they bring somebody who's done that before in their sleep. Let's get an example would be companies, a local company, and let's even go bigger. They're a regional company, and they want to go to cover the southeast, so they want to go even bigger. The folks who got it up to being a regional company don't always have the thinking ability. They're not used to going to a larger scope. But you bring somebody who's worked nationally, and there's maybe retiring or looking for a new job, a new excitement, and you bring them in and they're going to do a regional company or Southeast. Oh, that's a piece of cake. We know how to do that. We've done that before. And so it just happens. It happens with technology too. When you try to, I'm working with a company right now that is still, there's probably 300 people, and their systems are all on, Joey, what's the word? They're in-house. They keep
Yeah.
yeah, they keep all
Yeah.
they're not in the clouds.
Right. Right.
All their competitors are in the clouds.
Right.
Right. And so the systems are continually going down. And the IT people just don't know how to go to the cloud. They have all these reasons why not to go to the cloud. And leadership is saying, we got to go to the cloud. Well, can these people really do it? No. Sorry to say no. Because they've been given the opportunity, they've been told to do it, and they're too busy fixing the software in their own system internally, and they're afraid of what the cloud can do for various reasons. So I'm encouraging them find somebody who's done this, who's worked at another company like this, who has already made that transition. Bring them in.
Yeah.
You know,
One of the examples, George, I've seen of that also, because it triggered a memory when you were talking about going from like a maybe like a statewide organization to like a regional organization or something on that scale. And I was working with a company one time where they were trying to make that leap, and they've been around for long enough that all of their statewide reps, they started when they were maybe 25, and 15 years on, they're all 40 now, right?
Mhm.
They've got kids and families and little league games to go to in the evening, and them being like on the road traveling to Virginia or Georgia or, places like that to like expand to the region. They're like, I don't want to have to be away all that much. I've put in all that work over the
Yeah,
years and
pay
cultivated
my
my local
dues.
clients. And so like you need probably two things. You need like a sales manager who's saying, I'm not going to make you be gone for, where you're having to stay in a hotel room 5 nights a week, but you are going to need to travel 1 or 2 days a week or something like that. But you also need to bring on some sales talent who's willing to make that drive,
Yes.
whether they're younger or older or what. I mean, there's people who are probably my age, right?
Well,
Who might be veteran salespeople, and like, my kid is, done with college now and is off doing her own thing. And if I was traveling more, it'd probably be fine. So, understanding like the constituency that you're working with, and that just that same idea of what got us where we are is not going to get us where we're going.
absolutely. One of the things that we look at is when we look at a job, a position, and we ask if the job were to talk, what would it want?
Mm, I
Okay,
like that.
what would it want? And then we begin to look at not just the tasks, but what is that job accountable for? Not
Mhm.
what is a person, what is his position? Why is money being put into this position? What are the results, the accountabilities? And we try to break them out to three or four or five accountabilities. What are we looking for in a person? What are the characteristics? What moves that person? What's their educational background? What's their experience that we're looking for? And then we can match that to that individual. We'll begin to see, oh yeah, we needed a person who's loves traveling around the country, or who's used to doing that. And so we begin looking for that person. My problem in my career has always been I bring on when I did bring on people is I bring on people I like. I like everybody. That's a problem. you know. So since I like everybody, I don't always get the right person. But in helping clients, I'm able to uh, think this thing through a lot differently and look at it more objectively.
Yeah.
That
I'm wondering if, like, do you end up having to battle the ego of the business owner sometimes, where they've like, well, you know, I was smart enough to get us to this level, and then they bring you in as a consultant, and then they fight you on your recommendations?
Uh, yes, I've had that, but not too many times because I don't usually choose that client. One client I met at the hotel right down the road here, the Marriott, over 30 years ago. I sat next to him in a meeting, and he came from another country, and was not liking this country because he's an executive. They don't have a tea person, a tea lady to serve him tea. He had to go get his own tea. And he was just baffled by that and insulted by that. He's kind of an arrogant guy. Well, over the years, I worked with him because he brought me in to help. And we became friends, you could say high level business friends. I ended up on his board for probably 10 years, and it was an international company. But he was a narcissist. His ego was very strong.
Mhm.
And I learned very quickly that you listen and you do what you can, you give feedback, but watch it. That feedback can bounce. An example, before I worked with him, his staff told me that they went to a facilitated workshop in Winston-Salem, and he said he wanted feedback. He's a new president, and he wanted feedback. So they gave him feedback. The next morning, they found him at 5 in the morning leaving. He wasn't going to tolerate the feedback. The consultant had to really work with him to come back and to stay. He's still is owner of the company, and but I've learned that you can only go so far. And in those cases, my work became really the intermediary with his staff to help them manage and work around it. I couldn't work with him to change. He had his vision, he was driven, and uh, we had a fight for the shareholders. Well, he was the shareholder. People saw through that. And yeah, but I have seen that where they don't, but I don't have many other clients because most of the clients I work with are willing.
Yeah.
They bring them in, you know it, and there's I asked one, it was a scientific organization, and I worked with them for probably 17 years before they sold the company, and was on their board for a little bit. And I asked the CEO, I really, we became good friends. Con, I said, Tom, why do you use me? He goes, I use you not because you know what you don't. I don't want you to. I don't expect you to know my business, but because you work with other businesses and you bring a perspective. And my people like you, and you help our people. So that is real. Those are the two things. There's a different perspective, and you help my people. But when we start talking about science, we don't expect you to do a thing. So just,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
That makes sense.
I have the same thing. I talk to my clients all the time. I work with people across so many different industries, and I say it would be silly for me to give you the impression that I will ever understand your industry the way you understand your industry and the way the people that work for you understand your industry. But what I do understand is the way that small businesses fit together and how small group dynamics work. Like I've been unknowingly studying that for a lot longer than I've been being a coach. All of my hobbies center around small group dynamics and things like that. So, understand and how toxic it can be if you have like points of friction in a small organization. If years and years ago, I worked at a printing company and the graphic design department, um, there were there were two people who really didn't like each other, and there was another woman that worked in that department who was kind of like the buffer between them, and she went out on maternity leave, and it was like the whole thing started to fall apart in there.
right,
I
right.
mean, I was 20, 24 years old, and I wasn't like but I was just an observer of
Observer,
that,
right.
and that stuck with me. And like looking at my boss and watching him not do anything about this like slow motion disaster that was unfolding, and be like, it's amazing how much damage that did to the
Mhm.
productivity
Yeah.
there.
And frankly, it's many times we come into clients because of those conflicts that go
Mm.
on between people. And we realize that we are brought in when it's too late,
Yeah,
and yeah,
sometimes.
and there's
Which
not
leads me
much.
to a great question, actually, on this
Okay.
topic is what is the most expensive people problem that leaders routinely ignore, in your opinion?
I think I've already said it, is long-term employees
Okay.
who are loyal, who the owner cares for, and is not willing to make the change.
Ah,
That inhibits, it's not just a salary, but it
mhm,
inhibits the growth
mm,
and it becomes an internal obstacle.
Yeah.
That is what's expensive. Now, I've also seen people make strategic mistakes. Like one client I worked for depended for 25 years, had sourcing out of China
mm,
for for all of their materials that went into refrigerators and washing machines, and they were the broker in between. And for years, they were talking about finding sourcing in the U.S. or elsewhere, and they talked about it, and they talked about it, and they talked about it. Then COVID came,
ah,
Yeah.
and then Trump came.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that many years ago, uh, I was visiting a church of a friend of mine, and I heard the preacher say, people don't change when they see the light, they change when they feel the heat. And that's one of the ones that it really stuck with
Right.
me, where I'm like, you
Right.
know, you might want to think about sourcing a different vendor for what you need before the whole world shuts down, like before there's an emergency, before you have to, or that's it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And all of that applies to us too as human beings.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If anything I say, I'm giving the impression that I'm immune to that, please understand.
No,
I
I'm saying that for the audience
yeah.
is that we can look at you give this advice and work with people, but hell, man, we're just as human as any of the folks that we work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And here's a fun question as well. What do, in your opinion, great leaders do during conflict that average leaders avoid?
I don't see many leaders addressing conflict effectively. Some leaders, I'm thinking of the guy who ran GE, he loved conflict. Some leaders, our president today, likes conflict among his people. And
Mhm,
why do they do that? They think a creative tension comes from that.
mhm,
That if they disagree and they fight each other, that works. I'm not sure that works so well, but I think when people have a culture of transparency and are able to talk and debate, that I like.
mhm,
Right. But a lot of leaders will bring us in, bring people in and talk to them and tell them they got to behave or they got to change. And
mhm,
but nothing really happens. It goes under the table. I haven't really seen leaders deal with it. Uh, the ones that don't have much conflict are the ones that have built trust with each of the individual leaders that they have in their organization, and they're able to talk with them and they're able to build trust within the group. I'm working with a group like that with a leader who's an elected official.
mhm,
She's been there a number of years and now, and she has really great relationships with their people and the conflicts. She brings them in to resolve them and talk about them, but
mhm,
they also see it early,
mhm,
and people who understand the concept of forming, storming, norming, performing.
mhm.
So forming comes whenever there's a change of sort. So you bring the new person in.
Right.
Well, maybe it's like seeing a light. They know that there's going to be a conflict,
Yes.
but then they'll get too many other things to do.
Yeah.
We got to get the sales out, the production out. We got to do other things so we don't deal with the conflict.
Saying.
Yeah,
George, I'm wondering if you have a distinction, because it just occurred to me in this conversation that I think of these things as distinct as like a conflicted conversation being different than an uncomfortable conversation.
Ah, yeah. I think when the uncomfortable gets into the more personal or more not personal is you're attacking what I've done for 10 years of the way we do things here. And that's where it becomes maybe more personal. But we can deal with it from we have conflict because we may disagree about how we're going to do something,
Yeah.
and let's talk that through as individuals.
Well, I was thinking about it in reference to like your earlier comments about, sometimes you you realize that we've got people in the organization that are not really suited to what we need now, or not, maybe not what we need from their position.
Right.
And like we can treat that as like it's conflict where, you know, they want to hold on to what they have, and we need to get them to let go of what they have, versus maybe just an uncomfortable conversation where they're like they realize that their skill set is not the best suited to the role that they currently have, and they need to try to find another place, and like that's hard to talk about, and people will avoid it for as long as possible. And sometimes I just think it's, my whole job is to just have uncomfortable conversations and then get to the other side of that and figure out, so what did we learn in the course of that discomfort? And it's usually better on the other side of it. And it doesn't
Right.
necessarily have to be like opposing viewpoints. It could just be like everybody's avoiding talking about the elephant in the room. Why don't we just talk about it?
So much, so much, so often. An example I'm thinking of is a small construction company I was working with. We're doing a strategic plan. The owner wants it to grow. The people are so busy doing what they do. And this is frequent. People don't have the time to think about how do we make it grow?
Mm.
What do we need to do differently? We got to finish this wall. We got to do this. We got to do that. We ain't got the time to sit here and think about and then do things to make that happen, change our systems, change our ways.
Yeah.
That's 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 sad.
That's the classic, like so busy working in the business that there's no time to work on the business.
Perfect.
Right.
Right. Exactly right. Exactly right. And sometimes we ask the wrong people to work on the business because they really need to keep the business going. You know,
Yeah.
or they don't want to. They don't. Most of us are not strategic. I mean, how do we think that far ahead? My business partner and I, Mark Kelly, for years and years and years, he was strategic. I was the operations guy. Let him do it. I don't need to spend too much time doing it. I could do what I did well, and he do what he did well. We work perfectly well together that way. Yeah.
Well said. Beautiful. Here's a fun question. I'm curious about what is one popular piece of leadership advice that you believe is wrong?
But leadership advice that I believe is wrong.
Or would different
Okay.
opinions about?
Yeah, yeah. Leadership advice that I believe is wrong is that I think the one that we've been talking almost like a theme is people are usable, dispensable.
Mhm.
If these people, and I've seen this at one client like this, the owner, he doesn't like who's working, get rid of him. Get a new guy in there, get a new person. Rather than find the right person, build a relationship with that person.
Mhm.
The other part that I always struggle with in the capitalistic world is profit is more important than people.
Mhm.
And if this person is not making what I want, then I got to get a new person.
Mhm.
This particular owner, a European owner, has gone through 4 CEOs in the past 5 years.
Wow.
Okay. So I mean, it's that mindset. And he's probably getting advice from his dad, who built the company. Is that the old way of doing it is people are replaceable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with your opinion that like it just makes me feel like in some ways how people view the world of just like, oh, we'll just shove down your feelings and get to work
Yeah.
kind of thing. And cultures are shifting over a lot of companies. Like I remember, I didn't dig into this frankly, but I saw this post and about like it was like a group of Gen Z employees, and they said the air conditioning was broken in the company. And they said, call us, we'll come back to work when it's fixed. And they just left.
Must. Yeah.
They just left. And I was just like, wow, that's kind of cool. Maybe
That's
not
a
the best decision.
generational thing, which is another topic. I'm curious, Scott, what have you heard? What leadership advice that you've heard that you don't think works?
Well, I'll give you an example, but before I do, I just wanted to reiterate what you said a minute ago about like in businesses that are at the between like I'm going to say 5 and 20 people. It's a really awkward growth phase
Mm,
because when you go to hire somebody, the owner does almost all of the work in the hiring process. So they have probably at least tens, if not, 30, 40 hours invested in a hiring process between the recognition that they need to hire, creating the job listing somewhere, sifting through resumes, interviewing candidates, all that stuff, and
right.
then finally negotiating a hire. And then to to hire the wrong person or to hold on to the wrong person or to get rid of the wrong person anywhere in that process and you're back to square one is so costly because you just burned up somewhere between 10 and 40 hours of the most expensive resource in the business, which is the owner's time. And so that's one of the reasons where I'm like, anything we can do to be flexible with somebody that's good
Hmm.
or to create some kind of a plan for somebody who's struggling and try to see, can we have this person be what the company needs
Yeah,
is like, I just think it's otherwise we're throwing away a whole bunch of money.
right.
Um, and so that's really important. I mean, I actually have a whole presentation about business myths that are killing us, but if I'm going to just pick one, um, like I've always heard it said that like great leaders read a lot. And
Mm,
I read a lot, but I don't churn through business books like it's somehow my part-time job to like stay up on every popular business. Oh, have you read the this and that? I usually read about two or three a year.
hmm.
And when I read one, I go through them real slowly, usually. I'm not like, snapping through chapters like it's popcorn. I'm like, what did I learn from that chapter of the
Hmm.
book? Is there anything in there that I would like to implement? Um, and so that's one of the ones that again, please understand, I'm not against literacy. I'm not against people reading. I just think that sometimes I talk to people and they're like, it's like a badge of honor. I've read 40 books this year. And I'm like, cool. Like,
Good, right.
what have you implemented from those books and how has it made your business better or stronger? How is the time investment that you made in all that reading, how is that paying off? Um, I
I
mean,
love that. I love that question.
well,
Right, that
well,
you're really.
I literally talked to a client yesterday, and he's like, "Well, I'm getting ready to go on a vacation, so I grabbed the new Brene Brown book that you recommended." And I was like, "Okay, but maybe don't take that on vacation. Like, it's a really dense read. Like, she's drawing a lot of excerpts from other people's work, and it's the kind of thing that you want to like." Have time and space to think about. Like you don't want to be reading that while you're sipping a PBR on the beach or like trying to go out to dinner with your wife and kids, in 2 hours. Like I was like, just take some fiction and read it, you know.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, take a break. You don't
Right,
have to turn every bit of vacation time into somehow productive by
right,
multitasking.
right.
Um, so anyway, yeah, that's one of the ones I stick to. And the other one I'll
Okay.
put out there is I think especially right now, there's this kind of conventional wisdom that says you should make sure that you either don't have any political opinions or that nobody knows about your political opinions. Because if they do, then you're going to piss off half of everybody. And I like if you want to run your business that way, like that's fine. But I'm a believer, like, why would I think why would the glass have to be half empty? If I'm like, sure, I may piss off some people with what I believe, but why wouldn't it also draw me closer to people who align with what I believe?
It's
Um,
an interesting question and a delicate one. Sex, politics, and religion. Those are taboo topics in the official business world. But when you go to lunch with someone, then that might change, especially
yeah,
if they're your buddy. And in a country that advocates for free speech and freedom, it always strikes me like, why can't we be free here? What is it that stops us? I'm working with the client now, an engineering firm where the owner is very outgoing about her politics. And one of the key people who work there is using it, calling her a communist, and she's not, she's doing these things for this reason, and it creates an awful lot of ugly tension
yeah.
in the organization. So I really don't know how to balance that. The client I told you was a narcissist was also a liberal Muslim, if you will. He had women and Catholics and atheists and all that on his boards, and he was fine. But he was very, very strong about his feeling for Palestine, and would argue with people, and everyone just kind of knew it that he was. This is you don't mess with this topic. And
Yeah.
he's very knowledgeable on it. So it can distract from business. So I don't know where that balance is. I'd love
I,
to see the balance.
I just one of the ways I think about it is I've sacrificed a lot to create the business that I have.
Mhm.
And I don't think one of the things I have to sacrifice is the right to have an opinion about
So the right to have an
important.
opinion or speak your opinion is,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've been very out about, being gay, being an atheist, being liberal, and my clients all know it,
Yeah.
and most of them are pretty, very open about it. And I think that that's how I've been able to work with people well, because they're the same ideological bent that I am, whether it's,
That's what I mean. It's like I'm always just take issue. Like you think that, okay, so maybe there's some people that don't want to work with me because of what I believe. Let's pretend it's half. Like you don't think I can make a living off half of everybody?
right,
You know. So
right,
anyway,
yeah,
we could probably do a whole hour on like what's the conventional wisdom say and what do we really think about that.
right.
But yeah, I do think that some of these things that everybody just knows that this is true. I'm like, maybe it is and maybe it isn't.
I just want one more comment on that about what are I'm going to use the word sacred cows, if you remember
Yeah,
that from way back when. One of my clients was wanting to go, this is maybe 2 decades ago, wanted to go through a major change. And we had like 400 or 500 people in the room. And the president got up and talked about destroying the sacred cows that we have in our organization. And that was that women can't sell our product, only men can sell our product.
wow.
Things of that nature, and so he had actually had a fake cow up there, and he had people come up and just kind of beat at it to destroy the cows, and then he had them go back and think about what are our sacred cows,
Nice.
and
I
another
want there to
woman,
be a pinata in there somewhere.
right, yeah, there you go, and another woman who wanted to go through change brought up all the um, sacred cows are things that go wrong, and had people write them on a piece of paper, and then she put them all in a bowl and burnt them. Let's have a sacrificial burning, so to get rid of these. So anyway,
Yeah,
okay, let's move
that's
on.
cool.
That's cool. I like that. So here's a fun question I was thinking about. so far as in all your years of business, George, you've seen, generational shifts. And so I'm curious, what's your take on kind of expectations or tolerances, if you will, around like time or productivity based on different generations? And
Oh, absolutely. There's always going to be generational tensions,
yeah.
generational difference in values, in behavior. I mean, I had a ponytail at one time, believe it or not, ain't there no more. But there was one there, and my grandfather would just like, "What is this all about?" And what are you folks doing? And it always went to me is that the way I looked at it. It comes from Tom Gordon's leader effectiveness training and values conflict, is if there's really no impact on you, what's the difference? Can you learn to accept? If having that ponytail makes no difference, why is it a problem? I was in the Cayman Islands working in a bank, one of my clients, and I went down to the bank to cash some money. I saw this maybe 30 years ago. I saw, no, probably 20, saw a teller, a guy, we had an earring on. I said, "Oh, wow, that's really cool. This guy's hip. This is great." So I went to the president and I congratulated him on being so open-minded. And he said, "What?" I went downstairs immediately and disciplined that guy. I go, "Oh my goodness." So that's really a bad generational thing
Yes.
that happened. But there are, and that generational differences need to be brought to the table and talked about. They need to be pulled out. We've done that with many organizations where we do a survey to identify what the different groups believe and then pull them together to talk about it. But I think it's going to be a forever thing.
Mhm.
I mean, when I was young, don't trust anyone over 30. Now I'm 80, you know. And the other day we were talking to a young couple and helping them. They were in their 20s and they were looking for our advice on it was a family member, advice on buying a new home. And they were very open to it. So, this generation, I never would have done that with my grandfather's generation. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it exists. We got to be aware of it. Young new people coming out need to find and feel and fight for their own identity.
Mhm.
They need to. They want a sense of self, sense of who they are, and somehow I don't know if they're all people in that generation feel that way. No, but they seem to get labeled that way, and I think the generational discussion is always a good discussion.
George,
Yeah.
I'm curious about something, because this feels like it's coming up with a few of my clients lately. Um, you mentioned a moment ago that like you're on the verge of 80. Um,
No, I am 80.
you're 80 now? Well, like
81,
I
81.
gotta tell you, you look amazing for being 80. I would never have
Thank you.
guessed. Uh, and but like you're still at it, which I'm assuming that because you want to be. How have you uh I'm gonna say contended with burnout over such a long career?
I don't feel burnout.
Okay, so it's just not ever come up for you. You're just not experiencing. You never experienced burnout.
Not right. I guess I have. I've just not been intense. And I think part of it is, and you may feel this too, and Joey too, we have different customers. I'm not going to the same place every day.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm agnostic to my well, who I'm working with in the sense, and so if I'm working
Mhm.
with a science or a construction company or that gives me energy. Now put me in a corporation, I burn out pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
It's
I didn't answer your question. I don't know if I answered it, but
well, no, I mean, like if you're saying like the the design of your business and the work that you do and who you work with creates enough uh newness that you don't feel stagnated or in the same spot. Like I completely get that. That's largely been my experience. The other thing I've done is I've been real serious about designing my business in such a way that it feels sustainable. Like I used to work a lot more hours than I do now, and I came up against the realization when I had like 18 clients and I was just running from meeting to meeting to meeting all day, and I was exhausted by the evening. Like I would have definitely burnt out if I did that for 5 years.
Mm.
And so I came to the realization that like maybe just the admission to myself that like this work is very psychologically and emotionally demanding. It's very mentally demanding.
Mhm.
And I just can't do this as a 40-hour a week job or I'll be done
It's
very
not a
fast.
40-hour a week job.
Yeah. And so calibrating that so that I have time in my day where, I can step away and walk out to my garden and, see how the veggies are growing or water a little bit or pick a few weeds, or I can go, take my dog out for a few minutes and just kind of like let that decompression happen. I feel like I'm buying myself years of longevity in the industry.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's 2 points I want to make out. One, when I was flying a bit, I'm a 2 million mile flyer with Delta, so did a lot of that. Well, I
Nice.
mean, within one day, I think, or 2 days, I went from Raleigh to the Bahamas to Texas, back to Florida, back to the Bahamas. I mean, and then it wasn't too long after that that I decided I'm going to focus in the triangle. I don't need to be all over the
Nice.
place. So that was the switch there. And the other thing too is I've always looked at around 6, 7 as my active clients number. Uh, and I guess if I'm in a smaller organization, they may be harder for them to pay, but some of the medium size can afford a little more.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I have two questions before we wrap up. One question, and the last one's a fun one. This one is after 45 plus years of helping organizations bring out the best in people, what do you hope the next generation of leaders finally gets right?
Working together as teams. I really hope that they can work collaboratively
Hmm.
and realize the power of working together. I would
Mm.
hope that they can begin to get that right. I think I think Gen Z
Chinzy.
likes working with people, but with each other, and if they can create that energy in creating teams, I
Mm.
hope that they also the next generation can look at uh, make capitalism more humane,
Mm.
Mm.
maybe the B corporation,
Mm.
and to realize that profit is not the end of the world, that shareholder corporations exist for shareholders. That's what they're set up for,
Yeah.
period. And if you're the shareholder, it exists for you. I
Mm.
think we need to really look at, reevaluate what business is all really about.
I agree.
Here, here.
And the last question, we have a tradition on this podcast that the last guest gives a question to the next one, not knowing who it's for. So your question is, what is the decision you made in your career or life that felt risky at the time, but looking back, you're genuinely grateful you took the leap and
Oh,
why?
several. One is leaving Brooklyn to come here.
Okay.
That was a big risk. I had no money. I had my dog, my truck, and I came down here, and that was like, oh my God, let's go ahead and do that. And then didn't go into school, and I was 30 years old at the time. The other, I think, crazy decision was before this, running for public office in New York City. That was an insane decision that just took a lot of money and time and burnt me out for sure. And
That's
I
cool.
think a big decision that I don't know if this answers it quite, but I was in Chicago at Keebler was a client of mine, the little elves. They don't have
Yeah.
elves there, they have real people.
Yes.
Well, I was bidding on a job and there was another consultant in the room with me, and we were out in the hallway waiting for a decision. And he told me what he did, and he built a firm that had 100 consultants and it was blah 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 blah. And I said, well, I'm a one guy and I really admire you. I wish I could do that. And he goes, no, I admire you. having one be just working for yourself is much better than having 100 people to feed. So,
Interesting.
that was a decision that made me decide I'm not going to build my business. I'm going to be just a practitioner.
Hmm.
I love it.
I love that.
Very
Well,
cool.
well, thank you,
So it just has
George.
been a delight. And, luckily, all three of us kind of know each other socially at this point. So
Right.
these are conversations that I'm delighted to continue
I would
next
be
time we see
too.
each other.
Uh,
But we'll make sure that for those people who are listening that are not so privileged as to get to sit across from you necessarily, they'll have your contact information so
Yes.
they can get a hold of you and avail themselves of your services if that interests them. It's been great.
thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you all for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, give us a like, a follow, subscribe, and we'll give the contact information of George and where to get hold of him to support your business in the comments below. Tune in next time, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Take care.